The investigator didn't just dismiss me. He leaned back in his chair, fingers laced behind his head, like a man who had never once been told no in his life. His smile wasn't cruel. It was worse than that. It was bored. "Your daughter chose this," he said, tapping a pen against the file without opening it. "Girls shave their heads all the time. Fashion statement. The case is closed." I felt my jaw tighten. "One of the boys involved," he added casually, "happens to be the police captain's nephew. So let's not turn this into something it isn't." That was the moment something inside me went quiet. Not anger. Not fear. Something colder. Sharper. Trained. "My name is Elena Ward. I'm 51 years old. I spent 26 years in military intelligence and field reconnaissance before retiring to what I thought would be a peaceful civilian life in a small coastal town where nothing ever happened. I believed my wars were over. I was wrong. 3 nights earlier, my daughter Lily came home after school and walked past me without a word. No backpack. No shoes. No tears. Just hollow. Her eyes looked like someone had turned the lights off behind them. When she finally lifted her hood, my lungs stopped working. Her hair was gone. Not shaved neatly. Not styled. Raw patches. Uneven. Her scalp was red, irritated, exposed like a wound. She didn't look at me. She just whispered, "I'm tired," and locked herself in her room. That night she didn't eat. She didn't turn on the light. I heard her bathroom sink running at 3 a.m. over and over, like she was trying to wash something away that water couldn't touch. The next morning my phone vibrated. A video. At first I didn't recognize what I was seeing. A group of boys standing in a circle. Laughter. Phones out. Someone chanting. The camera tilted and there she was. My daughter. Her head forced down. Hands shaking. One of them holding clippers. Another saying, "Watch how we have fun with the bald girl." Then a message appeared beneath the video. "Stay quiet, old lady. Or we'll visit her again." They thought fear would freeze me. They had no idea who they were dealing with. I didn't call a lawyer. I didn't rush the school. I didn't scream at administrators who would only protect themselves. Instead, I made 3 phone calls to people who understood strategy, surveillance, and pressure better than any courtroom ever could. Within hours, patterns started forming. Deleted posts. Edited timestamps. Witness statements rewritten so many times they contradicted themselves. And a school administration more concerned with protecting legacies and donors than a 14-year-old girl who couldn't look at herself in the mirror. That evening Lily finally spoke. She sat on the edge of her bed, hoodie pulled tight around her head, voice barely above a breath. "Mom, are they really going to get away with this?" I took her hand. It was cold. Too cold. "No," I said softly. "They just don't know how badly they've miscalculated." Outside, rain hit the windows in steady, rhythmic taps. Like a countdown. That was when I began planning. People assume disappearing is the hardest skill to learn. It isn't. The harder skill is making others reappear. On paper, on record, in places they never meant to exist. By noon the next day, I had hospital corridor footage from the West Wing. Grainy, unremarkable to anyone else. But I knew what I was looking for. 3 boys walking out of Lily's room. Laughing. One adjusting his jacket like he'd just stepped out of a movie theater. No nurse remembered seeing them enter. But there they were. I sent the clip to my old team. No explanation. No text. Just the video. By evening I had names. Addresses. Family connections. One boy's mother sat on the district advisory board. Another had sealed juvenile records. The third, his uncle, was the police captain. So that's why the investigator smiled. This was never about violence. I wasn't going to touch them. I was going to do something worse. I was going to expose them. And they were about to learn the difference between power that's loud and power that waits. People imagine justice as something loud. Sirens. Courtrooms. Raised voices. But the most effective kind happens quietly in rooms where no one thinks to look. One of the calls I made that first day went to Marcus Hale, former signals analyst, now head of cybersecurity for a private school consortium. The kind of job districts outsource to and then forget exists. "Can you still pull archived data?" I asked him. There was a pause. Then a breath. "If it ever touched the server," he said, "it still exists." That night, Marcus found what the district insisted had been permanently deleted. Group chats. Drafted apologies never sent. Videos recorded, trimmed, reposted, erased. Not gone. Just buried. They joked about her. About how quiet she was. About how easy it was to corner someone who didn't fight back. One message stopped me cold. If she tells, say she asked for it. They always crack first. I didn't scream. I didn't throw the phone. I saved it. Then I built a timeline. Every message aligned. Every post cross-checked. Every policy violation tagged and labeled. By sunrise I had something the school didn't expect. A pattern. Meanwhile Lily stayed in her room. She covered her mirrors with towels. She flinched every time her phone buzzed, even when it was just her aunt checking in. Trauma doesn't announce itself. It just sits there heavy, waiting to see if the world is going to hurt you again. 5 days passed. I did nothing publicly. And that's when they relaxed. The boys started posting again. Gym selfies. Private stories. Jokes layered with arrogance, the kind that only comes back when someone believes they're safe. They always get careless. The message came late on the 5th night. Not posted. Not shared. Sent directly to Lily's old account. They didn't know I had control of it now. The video was darker than the first. Picky. 2 figures in ski masks. Their voices distorted, but not enough. One of them held a clump of brown hair. My daughter's hair. Tell your mom to back off, one of them said, laughing. Next time we won't stop at shaving. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I labeled the file, threatening a minor. Suction. Escalation. Then I sent it to someone most people wouldn't think to call. A civilian liaison who works with military intelligence transfers. Someone whose job isn't enforcement. It's tracking. Not to scare anyone. To document everything. By then, my team was already monitoring their digital footprints legally. Parents sign permissions without reading. Device safety. Student monitoring. Location pings. Deleted audio files. Overlapping logins. They thought they were invisible. They weren't. One evening, Lily stood in the kitchen watching me work. Why haven't you done anything? She asked quietly. I looked at her. Really looked. Her shoulders were still tense. Her head still bowed. But her voice was steadier. I already am, I said gently. She didn't understand yet. That was okay. Friday evening, 6:03 p.m. The school board meeting was scheduled to start in 7 minutes. I'd signed up to speak as a parent 2 days earlier. Standard request. Nothing suspicious. What wasn't standard was what I submitted with it. A sealed packet. Inside it. Hospital hallway footage. The recovered messages. A nurse's written statement overhearing jokes about the bald girl in room 312. And one photo I hesitated over longer than all the rest. Lily. The morning after. Hands covering half her face. I didn't want anyone to see it. But they needed to. When my name was called, I walked to the podium calmly. I didn't accuse. I didn't shout. I didn't say a single boy's name. I simply described what happened. Slowly. Hurry. Step by step. Then I slid the packet across the table toward the superintendent. I've also copied the Department of Education, I said, voice steady. 3 journalists. And an independent investigator specializing in harm to minors. I met his eyes. This is your opportunity to address this now, I said. Or explain later why you didn't. 2 seats down, a man in a football jacket went pale. I recognized him. The meeting ended early. People left fast. Whispers filled the room. Someone recorded my speech. By morning it was online. And the silence I'd been waiting for finally broke. By the time I woke up Saturday morning, my phone was vibrating nonstop. Messages. Missed calls. Notifications stacked on top of each other like falling dominoes. The clip from the school board meeting had crossed 40,000 views overnight. People weren't reacting the way the district expected. They weren't debating. They weren't asking what really happened. They were angry. Alumni started commenting first. Former students sharing their own stories. Locker rooms, hallways, complaints that went nowhere. Parents followed. Then donors. Then sponsors. By noon, the district's social media accounts went dark. No statements. No denials. Silence. Exactly what I wanted. On Monday morning, 2 of the boys were pulled from classes, pending review. No announcements. No explanation. Just gone. The third one, the football captain's cousin, was still walking the halls. His uncle was doing damage control. Press calls. Careful phrasing. Good kid. Misunderstanding. No formal charges. The system was still trying to protect itself. But it was already leaking. A local podcast picked up the story by Tuesday. Then a national anti-bullying account reshared the board meeting clip. They blurred faces. Changed names. Protected Lily completely. Still, everyone knew who they were talking about. The district reached out by email. Not an apology. A proposal. They suggested restorative mediation. A circle. Counselors. Carefully chosen words meant to make it all go away quietly. I didn't reply. My attorney did. He sent back a document outlining every policy the school had violated, cross-referenced with state and federal guidelines. Attached was a draft civil complaint already reviewed by an education board legal advisor. They stopped emailing after that. Meanwhile, I handed the digital timeline to someone else. An old contact now working internal affairs at the county level. Not just about the boys. About their parents. One father had quietly funneled district contracts into his own company. Another had interfered with a police report the year before. This wasn't an incident. It was a pattern of protection. And patterns are fragile once someone starts pulling at them. Lily noticed the change before I did. She started coming downstairs again. Sitting near the window. Letting sunlight touch her face. Still guarded but present. One night she asked, "Are they scared?" I thought for a moment. "They should be," I said. Because I was still holding something back. 2 years earlier, the school had installed a high-end security system. Cloud-based. Continuous backups. A big deal at the time. Months later they quietly downgraded. Budget reasons, they said. Claimed the old footage had been wiped. It hadn't. One of my team's contacts worked at the vendor company. The footage was archived. When the files came in, I had to step outside. One clip showed 2 boys dragging a girl backward down a side hallway near the locker rooms. Her hoodie was visible. I recognized it instantly. Another clip showed a third boy standing watch, laughing, tapping his phone like he was recording. Time stamped. Location coded. Then we found the janitor logs. A report filed a month earlier. Handwritten. Simple. Heard screaming in Hall B girls' wing. Observed 3 male students exiting. Submitted for review. The report was never logged. Buried. That was the final card. I packaged everything carefully. Full footage. Enhanced frames. The janitor's statement. Internal emails showing administrative delay. Logs proving the report was ignored. I didn't send it to the media. I sent it to a state-level child protection investigator and the Department of Justice's Office of Civil Rights. Within 24 hours, the DOJ opened a preliminary inquiry. The district tried to stay quiet. But silence doesn't survive sunlight. 2 days later, the superintendent went on temporary leave. The school board released a bland statement about student privacy and ongoing reviews. Behind the scenes, panic was setting in. One of my contacts forwarded me an internal email chain leaked by a nervous admin assistant. Lawyers scrambling. Settlement discussions already happening, before anyone had officially filed. They knew. That's when I moved. My attorney filed the civil lawsuit. We named the school. The district. 3 administrators. And the individuals responsible. We didn't sue for money. We sued for change. Permanent removal of the boys from public schools. Termination of responsible staff. Mandatory policy reform with third-party oversight. A written apology to Lily. They expected greed. What they got was accountability. The local news finally told the full story, not just what happened to Lily but how it was hidden. Parents paused donations. A board member resigned. And the football coach, the captain's uncle, was suspended pending investigation. Collapse never starts with a bang. It starts with threads pulled quietly, until the whole curtain falls. By Wednesday the story had gone national. Headlines weren't subtle. District protected star athlete while student was assaulted. Hidden footage reveals school cover-up. The journalist who received my sealed packet had done her homework. She had all the evidence. Every timeline, every screenshot, every internal email I had collected. Not a single detail could be dismissed. And suddenly, Everything the district tried to bury came to light. Parents called the school offices demanding answers. Donors froze contributions. One major sponsor announced a review of its affiliation with the district. The boys. They were gone from classrooms. 2 fully removed. The third, still being protected by his father's influence, but his visibility dropped. He stopped posting online. His bravado disappeared. Even for someone so young, the realization that power had limits was a lesson he wouldn't forget. The administration scrambled. Principals, board members, staff, they all tried to spin, obfuscate, delay. But by now the story was public. Too many eyes. Too many threads. And I had left nothing out of my timeline. Every official delay. Every attempt to silence witnesses. Every erased report. Internally the panic was tangible. I received forwarded emails from nervous administrators discussing pre-negotiated settlements, assuming guilt before a single legal step had been publicly taken. Their arrogance had cost them. And that's exactly how I wanted it. Meanwhile, Lily began to emerge from the shadows of her trauma. She walked down the stairs without a hoodie. She looked at me without flinching. For the first time in weeks she asked softly, almost shyly, "Can we go get breakfast?" I swallowed the lump in my throat. Her head was still buzzed short, exposing the scars of what had been done to her. But she wanted normalcy. She wanted life, not just safety. "Anywhere you want," I told her. We went to a small, quiet diner on the edge of town. Lily tucked into a corner booth, her hands wrapped around a warm cup of cocoa. A waitress recognized her, and a couple at the next table gave her a nod. Respect, not pity. It was a small victory, but one that meant more than any legal win. Back home I monitored the fallout quietly. Reports came in. The principal was removed, the school board launched a full internal audit, and 3 staff members resigned under mounting pressure. Policies were rewritten. Oversight strengthened. The district would never be able to ignore incidents like this again. But none of it mattered as much as this moment. Lily smiling just enough to show she believed in her own safety again. That night I stepped onto the porch, coffee in hand. The coastal air was calm. The storm inside me had quieted. The storm outside, the one that had raged in boardrooms, locker rooms, and private offices, had begun to subside. I thought about what Mr. Langley, an old friend and retired officer, had told me years ago. There's more than one way to win a war, son. Sometimes it's making sure the next battle is never fought. I hadn't destroyed anyone. I hadn't physically harmed a single person. But I had exposed them. And that exposure had ripple effects far beyond what the school, the boys, or their parents had ever imagined. I went inside to find Lily in the kitchen, humming softly as she organized her school bag for the next day. I didn't need to say anything. She knew what had happened. She understood that the system had been forced to answer. And for the first time in weeks she looked at me and said something that made me hold back tears. "You didn't just protect me, Mom. You protected the next girl too." And she was right. Because sometimes the fight isn't about revenge. It's about ensuring that the world changes quietly, firmly, and irrevocably, so the next person never has to endure what the last did. The legal battles would continue. Appeals might come. The remaining administrators might resist. But the moment Lily stepped out of the shadow, I knew we had already won. The sun had risen again on our small town. And for once I let myself believe that the quiet kind of justice, the one that doesn't make headlines immediately, the one that doesn't require force, was the kind that lasts. By Thursday morning the school had gone silent. Not the quiet of resolution, it was fear. Fear that their secrets had been exposed. Fear that the pattern of negligence, favoritism, and cover-ups would no longer be tolerated. Emails, phone calls, and internal memos circulated frantically among the administration. I had a copy of some, forwarded by an old contact who couldn't resist sending me proof of their scrambling. Their words were telling. Settlement talks. Urgent. Minimize exposure. Anticipate federal review. Every word confirmed what I already knew. Systems that feel untouchable crumble fastest when someone pulls the threads correctly. And I had been pulling. The DOJ's preliminary inquiry had begun. Federal child protection agencies were watching. Investigators were reviewing footage I had provided. Policies were being rewritten at the district level. And for the first time the boys, their parents, and their enablers faced consequences that couldn't be ignored or smoothed over with a smile. Meanwhile, Lily's transformation was almost surreal. She walked into school for the first time in weeks without covering her head. Her hair was short, uneven, but she wore it with quiet strength. We went for breakfast again that morning. He picked the same quiet diner. The waitress smiled, familiar with her now. Lily looked around the room with calm eyes, the kind that belonged to a girl who had reclaimed a little piece of the world she thought she had lost. I watched her sip her cocoa and realized something crucial. What had mattered wasn't the lawsuit. It wasn't the school board meeting. It wasn't even the viral video. It was the shift. The shift in power. The shift in safety. The shift in the understanding that a girl like Lily or any girl didn't have to fight alone. Back home, I reviewed the final pieces. The internal audits, the resignations, the policy changes. The district could no longer claim ignorance. The parents of these boys understood accountability wasn't negotiable. The football coach, the uncle of the captain, was suspended indefinitely pending further investigation. And yet, through all of it, not a word of Lily's identity had been revealed publicly. I had been careful. Her privacy was her victory. She hadn't needed fame. She had needed justice. That evening, I sat on the porch again, the air calm after a week of storms, both literal and figurative. I held my coffee like a shield, thinking about how easy it is to let fear dictate your actions. But fear isn't a strategy. Action is. I had acted with patience, with precision, with the kind of quiet persistence that comes from knowing you cannot outrun history, but you can shape it. 2 days later, the last board member who had tried to minimize incidents resigned. The school's internal policies were overhauled with third-party oversight. Names and faces blurred in news coverage, but the truth remained. Accountability had been set in motion and nothing could undo that. I walked inside to find Lily at the kitchen table, sketching quietly. She glanced up, her short hair catching the last rays of sunlight. "Mom," she said softly, "I think it's finally over." I crouched down beside her, hand on hers. "Not just over," I said. "Changed. Permanently." She smiled, a small knowing smile, and for the first time in weeks, it was free of fear. Later that night, I reflected on what had happened. This wasn't revenge. This wasn't vigilantism. It wasn't about power for power's sake. It was about leverage, patience, and the slow dismantling of a system that allowed predators to hide behind badges and influence. I hadn't needed to destroy anyone. I had needed to reveal. And revelation carries consequences far beyond what the perpetrators ever imagine. As I poured another cup of coffee and watched the stars above the coastal horizon, I realized something I hadn't allowed myself to admit before. I had not only protected my daughter. I had protected every girl who might have walked those halls, unnoticed, silenced, afraid. And that was the victory. The rest of the world would see headlines. Some would cheer. Some would ignore it. But for Lily and me it was deeper. It was quiet, deliberate, and irrevocable justice. She would grow up knowing the world could be changed. That sometimes the most effective battles aren't fought with fists or rage. They're fought with patience, precision, and courage. And for the first time in a long while, I let myself believe we had won. Because sometimes the strongest weapon a parent has isn't force. It's the ability to act unseen, until the consequences are undeniable.